I need to tell you a story about my Aunt Elena, because if I don't get this out of my head and onto paper, I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. You know how every family has that one relative who is a bit dramatic? Elena isn't dramatic. She is a psychological hurricane, and everyone in my family has spent decades pretending it's just a light breeze. It started last May when I finally graduated from my master's program. I worked myself to the bone for 3 years, working 2 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. My parents hosted a small backyard dinner to celebrate. Elena arrived late, which is a trademark move to ensure that all eyes shift to the door the moment she walks in. She didn't bring a gift or a card, but she did bring a massive, professionally framed oil painting of herself from her own college days in the 1980s. She walked right past me, set the painting on the main buffet table next to my graduation cake, and said, "I thought this would inspire everyone tonight. Look at how much I achieved at your age, back when success actually required real grit." I felt the ass suck out of the yard. My mom looked terrified, quickly chiming in with, "Oh, Elena, you were so beautiful back then." My dad just stared at his shoes. That is the golden rule in our family. Never challenge Elena, because the fallout is always worse than the insult. Throughout dinner, every time someone asked me about my new job or my thesis, Elena would cut in. If I talked about my grueling finals week, she would launch into a monologue about her demanding schedule as a regional manager 30 years ago. When my roommate tried to toast to my achievements, Elena loudly cleared her throat, stood up, and redirected the toast to her own resilience for overcoming a minor knee injury 2 winters ago. The tipping point happened when we cut the cake. I made a joke about finally having free time to sleep, and Elena slammed her wine glass onto the table. It shattered. She stood up, tears welling perfectly in her eyes, and screamed that I was completely ungrateful. She claimed I was mocking her because she has chronic insomnia, and that my entire graduation party was engineered as a personal attack to make her feel excluded. She stormed out, taking her oil painting with her. But the story doesn't end there, and this is the part I really need you to understand. The next morning, the rewriting of history began. Elena sent a massive mass email to the entire extended family, uncles, aunts, cousins, even my grandma. In it, she played the ultimate victim. She wrote that I had publicly humiliated her, screamed profanities at her, and that my parents stood by and let it happen. She claimed she left the party in fear for her safety. Within hours, my phone was buzzing. My cousin called to ask why I was being so mean to Elena. My uncle sent a text saying I needed to apologize because Elena has a fragile heart. When I tried to tell them what actually happened, that she smashed a glass and fabricated the entire narrative, they just sighed. One of my aunts told me, "Just apologize to keep the peace. You know how she gets. Do it for the family." That's the exact moment the trap snaps shut. It isn't just about her delusions of grandeur or her constant need for praise. It's the way she weaponizes the rest of the family to make you feel like you are the crazy one. They would rather sacrifice my sanity and reality than face her wrath. I didn't send the apology. I stopped speaking to her and began ignoring calls from half my relatives. It was a lonely place to be, but I refused to play a character in her twisted script. 6 months after the graduation disaster, the family dynamic completely imploded. The Cold War ended, and a psychological guerrilla war began. It started with an unexpected package on my doorstep. It was a massive, expensive espresso machine. Enclosed was a card from Elena written in elegant calligraphy. "For my brilliant graduate. Family is too precious for misunderstandings. Let's put the past behind us. Love, Aunt Elena." I felt sick to my stomach. I knew this wasn't an apology. It was a Trojan horse. 2 days later, my mom called me, weeping with relief. Elena had told the entire family about the extravagant peace offering she bought me. My mom begged me to call Elena and to thank her. The pressure from my relatives was immense. They praised Elena's noble, forgiving heart and painted me as the bitter, holding a grudge villain. Against my better judgment, I texted Elena a brief, formal thank you note. Her trap snapped shut instantly. She replied, "Good. Now that you've accepted my apology for your behavior, you can do me a favor. I need you to ghostwrite my new self-help memoir. With your degree, it should take you no time at all. I won't be paying you, of course, since we are square now." I refused. Politely, but firmly. Elena's retaliation was swift and calculated. She didn't throw another tantrum. Instead, she weaponized my cousin Chloe's upcoming wedding. Chloe, who had always been easily manipulated, announced Elena was her honorary maid of honor. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received an updated digital invitation. My name was missing from the RSVP list. When I called Chloe, she broke down in tears. Elena had convinced Chloe that I was planning to ruin the wedding to steal the spotlight, just like I did at my graduation. Elena told the bridal party that I had a history of mental instability and jealousy. To protect Chloe's special day, Elena generously offered to pay for the entire open bar, on the strict condition that I was disinvited. Elena bought my banishment, and the family let her. I didn't crash the wedding, but the truth came out anyway, courtesy of a technological oversight. Elena, eager to document her triumph as the savior of Chloe's wedding, insisted on live streaming the reception for out-of-town guests. She set up her iPad on the head table, right next to her seat. During the speeches, Elena went to the restroom, taking Chloe's mother, my aunt, with her. She forgot that the iPad's microphone was high definition and broadcasting live to over 50 relatives watching at home. Sitting in my apartment, I watched the live feed. Suddenly, the audio from the hallway echoed clearly through the stream. Elena was furious because the wedding photographer hadn't taken enough solo portraits of her. I don't care about Chloe's dress, Elena's voice boomed through the speakers to everyone online. I paid $10,000 for the alcohol, just to get that ungrateful brat out of here, and I expect to look like the queen of this family in the album. Chloe is a plain girl. My presence is the only thing making this wedding look high class. My aunt tried to quiet her down, but Elena snapped, "Shut up. You'll do what I say, or I'll stop paying your mortgage next month, just like I threatened." The live stream chat exploded. Relatives who had enabled Elena for decades because they feared her, or because they were financially dependent on her, were publicly exposed. The illusion was shattered in front of the entire extended family. Chloe ran off the dance floor in tears when a bridesmaid showed her the stream. The wedding ended in absolute chaos. The next day, my phone rang off the hook. This time, it wasn't demands for an apology. It was my aunts, uncles, and cousins, crying and apologizing to me. They finally admitted they knew she was a monster all along, but they were too terrified or compromised to stand up to her. Elena tried to claim the audio was AI generated by me to sabotage her, but nobody bought it. She was officially cast out by half the family. But a narcissist never truly loses in their own mind. A few days later, she posted a selfie on Facebook from a luxury spa with the caption, "Cutting off toxic, jealous family members is the ultimate form of self-care. Moving on to bigger and better things where I am appreciated." For 3 months after the wedding disaster, there was a strange, eerie peace. The family chat was quiet. And Elena was radioactive. Nobody dared touch her. I actually started building real relationships with my cousins again, free from her shadow. But a narcissist cannot survive in a vacuum. Elena needed her audience back, and she knew exactly how to exploit the guilt and weakness of her former enablers. Elena didn't come back fighting. She came back bleeding. It started with my Aunt Sarah, the one whose mortgage Elena had threatened. Elena sent her a text, not an angry one, but a picture of a medical wristband and a hospital gown. The caption read, "Tests came back. It's what we feared. I'm facing this alone, but I understand why everyone hates me. I'm so sorry for being a burden." It was a masterclass in emotional blackmail. She didn't specify what the illness was. She didn't need to. The vague implication of death instantly triggered the enabler's programming. Within days, the cracks in the family wall appeared, and Sarah called my mom crying. What if she's actually dying? How will we live with ourselves if we ignore her? Next went my cousin Chloe, who was desperate to believe her wedding wasn't ruined by a malicious monster, but rather by a sick woman who just lost control. Elena began handing out financial crumbs again, a loan here, a vacation rental there, wrapped in a shroud of tragic martyrdom. She was doing good deeds before her time ran out. One by one, the enablers crawled back, desperately rewriting the wedding stream as a medical breakdown rather than a malicious confession. Soon, the pressure shifted back onto me. My mom told me, "She's very sick, honey. Life is too short. Can't you just let it go?" The inevitable clash happened at my grandmother's 80th birthday dinner. I only agreed to go because Grandma begged me. I knew Elena would be there, flanked by her acclaimed court of enablers. When I walked into the private dining room at the restaurant, the air froze. Elena was seated at the head of the table, looking perfectly healthy, wearing a dramatic black scarf like a tragic heroine. And Sarah was literally cutting up Elena's steak for her. "Ah, the prodigal child." Elena sighed loudly, her voice dripping with artificial pity. "I'm glad you could join us before my time is short. I forgive you for what you did to me, you know." The enablers all nodded in unison, looking at me with pleading eyes that said just play along. I didn't sit down. I stood at the foot of the table, took a deep breath, and looked her dead in the eye. "Stop it, Elena. You aren't dying. You had a routine colonoscopy last month." I asked Grandma's doctor. Aunt Sarah gasped. Elena's face instantly shifted. The fragile, dying victim vanished, and the cold, predatory glare returned. She hissed, dropping the sweet tone entirely, and called me a deeply malicious, jealous person. Said I tried to ruin this family since the day I graduated, that I manipulated that video feed, poisoned everyone against her, and now I was attacking a sick woman. I told her I didn't manipulate anything, in a calm, steady voice, loud enough for the neighboring tables to hear. I said, "We all heard who you really are. You bought Chloe's banishment of me. You threatened Sarah's house. You think everyone here loves you, but they're just terrified of you. Or they're on your payroll." Chloe stood up yelling, defending Elena. "How dare you? She paid for my open bar." I told her she paid to humiliate me, and that she let her buy her self-respect for $10,000. I looked at everyone and said, "Look at all of you. She calls you plain, she threatens your homes, she fakes illnesses, and you are sitting here cutting her meat because you're too cowardly to stand on your own 2 feet." The table was dead silent. My mom was crying, and Sarah looked sick. Elena slammed her hands on the table and stood up. "Get out. You are officially cut off from this family. Nobody is to speak to her again. If anyone communicates with this ungrateful brat, you are dead to me." She looked around the table, expecting her army to rise up in outrage with her. But that time something was different. Nobody stood up. They just stared at their plates, suffocated by the heavy, ugly truth I just laid out under the restaurant lights. They were still trapped, but the illusion was entirely gone. I told Elena she couldn't cut me off because I've already left. She could keep her cult for all I cared, but I was going to live in the real world. I turned around and walked out into the cool night air. As the restaurant doors closed behind me, I felt a weight lift off my chest that I didn't even know I'd been carrying since I was a child. I was entirely alone, but for the first time in my life, I felt completely free. Eventually, Elena's power over the family was gone, but her rage remained. 6 months after the restaurant showdown, she launched a scorched earth campaign designed to ruin my career. I was up for a major promotion at my corporate consulting firm. One morning, my HR director called me into his office, looking deeply uncomfortable. On his desk was a thick, physical manila envelope. Elena had sent a meticulously crafted, anonymous dossier to the executive team. It contained heavily edited, out-of-context text messages spanning 5 years, photos of me from college parties, and a formal letter. The letter accused me of corporate espionage, stealing company data, and tracking trade secrets on behalf of a competitor. She had even created a fake LinkedIn profile under a pseudonym, pretending to be my former business partner who I had allegedly defrauded. It was a terrifyingly sophisticated attempt at professional assassination. For 48 hours, my promotion was frozen. I sat in HR meetings, walking them through the timeline of my family drama. Fortunately, Elena made one critical error in her narcissistic arrogance. She used her own high-end home printer, which embedded a microscopic, traceable serial code on the pages. More importantly, my firm's IT forensics team quickly proved the corporate data leaks she attached were amateurish fakes, created on a personal laptop. The company didn't fire me. Instead, their legal team helped me file a formal cease and desist order. 2 weeks later, my promotion went through. Elena's ultimate weapon, her ability to rewrite reality, had completely failed against a corporate compliance department that only cared about objective data. It has now been exactly 1 year since I walked out of that restaurant, and my life is unrecognizable. I no longer check the family group chats. I blocked Elena on every platform, along with her phone number and any email address she created. Last month, I bought my first condo. The space is small, quiet, and entirely mine. There are no dramatic oil paintings on the walls, and no one is allowed across the threshold who demands eggshell walking submission. As for the family, the fallout from that restaurant night permanently fractured Elena's empire. And Sarah finally stopped accepting financial gifts from Elena. Without that leverage, she found the courage to stay away. She calls me occasionally, trying to repair our bond. I speak to her, but the relationship is guarded. I no longer share personal details about my career or location. Cousin Chloe and her husband are currently in marriage counseling. The stress of the wedding disaster and Elena's constant interference caused a massive rift between them. Chloe sent me a long apology letter a few months ago, admitting she let her insecurities make her a pawn. I forgave her, but I keep my distance. Elena is currently living out her own worst nightmare, irrelevance. According to my mom, who I still see for quiet lunches outside of town, Elena has moved to a retirement community 2 states away. She tells everyone there that she is a retired philanthropist who had to flee her deeply ungrateful, abusive family for her own mental health. She has a whole new audience of strangers who don't know her history yet. Sometimes I feel a twinge of sadness for the family I wished I had. But then I look around at my life now. I have a tight-knit circle of friends who celebrate my wins without jealousy and support my losses without strings attached. I learned the hard way that blood binds you to a lineage, but boundaries bind you to peace. I'm finally writing my own story now, and Elena isn't even a footnote.